Welcome to Educator Job Searches. This is video 3, Interview Strategies. My name is Dr. David Conrad. I'm a professor here in the College of Education and Human Development at Governor State University, and I will be the host of today's video. There are two learning objectives for video 3. Students will apply strategies for effective interviews, and students will practice verbal interview responses. When you arrive in a school for an interview, the first 300 seconds are critical. First impressions influence principals. Studies have shown that 50% of private industry employers reported that they can decide within 5 minutes if a candidate will be a good fit. In other words, within 300 seconds, half of people who are interviewing candidates for a job can tell whether that candidate is going to be a good fit. For your interview, you should dress professionally in conservative business attire. And remember that the office staff are observing you. Be kind and arrive early. During interviews, school leaders are evaluating many candidate qualities. These include verbal ability, content knowledge, knowledge of teaching and learning, certification status, teaching experience, caring, fairness and respect, and several others. Please pause to read this list. There are three primary types of interview questions that you might get asked. The first type is an informational interview question. This is where you're asked to elaborate about some kind of information or something that you would know, like facts or reading. A sample question might be, what makes a positive and productive classroom climate? The school leader is seeking information from the candidate. The second question type is a situational question. You'll be prompted to explain how you would handle some kind of hypothetical situation. Here's a sample. School is starting in a week and you have just received your class list. Another teacher tells you that you have several challenging students assigned to your class. What would you do to ensure that you will foster a positive and productive classroom climate? The third question type is experience-based. You'll be asked to talk about something in the past that you have done and how you performed in that situation. Here's an example of an experience-based question. Share with me what you do to foster a positive and productive classroom climate. Many districts have begun using online pre-screening tools, platforms such as RIVS, Venture, and VidCruiter. A video will record your initial questions so that a hiring committee can watch together or alone. Sometimes this is more convenient than trying to get all the teachers together for one interview session at the same time. Online pre-screening narrows a larger candidate pool. And here's a sample format. You might receive the question or the questions. You'll have 1 minute to prepare. And then you'll have a maximum of 4 minutes to speak and record your answers. There may be up to 6 questions total. This is a sample format that many school districts are using here in our region. Here are some tips for online interviews. First, treat the interview the same as if it were face-to-face. Be on time and dress up. Second, know the online interview platform and the expectations. Whether it's Zoom or Meets, etc. Make sure you practice with that online interview platform and know that your computer has the software downloaded and will work with that platform. Next, showcase your tech knowledge. If you can share your screen and show something relevant during the interview, that would be desirable. Next, check your microphone, room lighting, and the position of your computer. Next, look directly at the camera and tone down your physical gestures. Next, unclutter your background and silence your phone. Avoid taking interviews in bedrooms or living rooms. Maybe find a dining room with a plain wall or simple background. And finally, you need to consider child care and pet sitters. You wouldn't bring your dog to an interview face-to-face, and you wouldn't bring a small child to the interview. You might need to ask grandma or a neighbor or someone to help you out with some child care and pet sitting so that you can have a non-distracted environment for a professional online interview. School leaders will be looking for a number of different qualities from candidates, and as they're thinking about each of the questions that you respond to, they will be using some kind of rubric or scoring guide to rate your response. Here is the scoring guide that I used when I was a principal. Press pause and read through the scoring guide. Here is a model for answering experience-based interview questions. This is called the STAR model. So if you get a question that asks you to talk about a past experience, such as, tell me about a time you had a difficult case with a student behavior, you can use the STAR model to help respond to that experience-based question. S is situation. Start by briefly describing the situation. My cooperating teacher and I had a student who was quite off task during class. We observed 5 off-task instances during one class period. T, task. Briefly describe the goal and objective. What was the purpose? Our goal was to reduce the amount of off-task behavior so that the student would only exhibit one off-task behavior during each class period. A is action. What were the steps you took? What was your role? Frame your action in the context of collaboration and teamwork. My cooperating teacher and I created behavior charts. We put the behavior charts on the students' desks so that they could monitor their progress, and we had the student do some self-charting and self-monitoring of their behavior. At the end of the week, if they achieved our goal, they received a prize. R, result. Describe the positive outcome. What did you learn from this experience? I learned that caring for students and helping them to see their progress was an important element of our intervention. To use the STAR model, you'll want to practice in advance, but this is a very good strategy for answering experience-based questions. Here is another interview response model. It's called the 3-part response model. When you're asked a question, first start by explaining your philosophy, such as, I believe, or I feel, or the research suggests. Second, describe what it looks like now during your student teaching or your paraprofessional work. Third, describe how it will look in the future. In other words, how would you apply this to the new position? So if your student teaching was in early childhood, but your new position is going to be math instructional coaching, describe how you would approach this same problem in your new position. Here is a sample question using the 3-part model. The interview question is, how would you address SEL standards? First, explain your philosophy. I believe schools must develop the whole child. Time spent on supporting the social and emotional development of children will improve their readiness to learn and accelerate their academic growth. Number 2, describe what it looks like now. During my student teaching at Bayside High School, we held peace circles on the first day of every week. Our students needed time to refocus after the weekend. We used circles to build and rebuild a community of trust in our classrooms. And finally, describe how it will look in the future. As a 5th grade teacher, I will integrate restorative practices into my classroom, giving voice to my students. I would use our school's PBIS initiative to create cool tools to help my students practice. Like the STAR model, the 3-part response model must be practiced. Here are 6 sample questions that you could use to practice the 3-part response model. Start by explaining your philosophy, describe what it looks like now, and then describe how it will look in the new position. Press pause and practice the 3-part response model. Next are several strategies and suggestions for handling interview questions. Sometimes school leaders will ask you a yes or no question. And if you are asked a yes or no question, reframe the question by describing your related successes. If you're asked, do you have experience with conclusion? It's less effective to just answer yes. Use this as an opportunity to talk about inclusion. A more effective response would be, my student teaching placement included 8 weeks of 3rd grade inclusion. The inclusion specialist collaborated with our team to design station teaching. Next, reframe negatives. If you ever get a question that has a negative response, reframe potential negatives into positives and demonstrate how you will own the problem and improve student learning. So for example, why are the test scores so low in 3rd grade? The less effective response would be, the test scores were low because students had too many remote learning days. But more effective would be, we can improve student test scores by implementing peer reading centers to increase learning engagement. What if you don't know the answer to an interview question? It's important to be honest. Principals know you are a new teacher. If you are asked something you don't know yet, it's okay to respond with, I haven't experienced that yet, but I'm anxious to learn more. I can't speak to that, but this gives me something new to research. Or 3, could you explain what that looks like in the school district? Practice collaborative, student-centered responses to interview questions. When you respond, you should always focus on students and student learning. As you're answering interview questions, think about these 2 questions in your head. What are students doing? And how does student voice influence your practices? We want to focus on students when responding to interview questions. We or us demonstrates teamwork and collaboration, and you should try to use the pronoun I sparingly, if at all. Here's an example. The question asked is, how do you use assessment data? A less effective response is, after I grade the papers, I look at the questions and decide what lessons I need to teach next. A more effective response is, the assessment data and exit slips drive our daily planning decisions. Some candidates will be asked to present a sample lesson. In other words, you'll be given a group of students to teach and a 15-20 minute time slot, and you'll be asked to be a sample teacher. Consider these elements. You should plan an engaging pre-assessment to motivate the topic. You should state the learning outcome. You should deliver an engaged active learning lesson activity and conduct a post-assessment, whether it's an exit slip, a student-centered closure, a survey, a poll, maybe writing on a whiteboard and showing their answers. These are some questions that will help you in planning this sample lesson. How much time do you have? And you must practice. Don't go over. Only plan to use the activity time that you've been allotted. Next, if you're online, how can you share your screen? Third, how will you share hyperlinks with the class? Who are the students and how many will there be? And will they have one-to-one technology? Sometimes the students are just school administrators or members of the search committee. Sometimes it's actual students that you might be teaching in the future. And finally, choose a small slice of your topic. It's better for a little depth in a short lesson time than to have too much depth in your lesson. You can practice for job interviews. Gather with your peers and practice. Get together at Starbucks or at the university in the library. You can get together with peers and practice asking each other interview questions. You can search online for more questions, but here's a list of typical questions that most candidates will be asked during an interview during their employment search. Be prepared to field questions about the hot topics in education. Today, those topics might include technology and remote learning, culturally responsive teaching standards, equity in classrooms, COVID-19 learning loss. You might get questions about restorative justice, like classroom circles or peer mediation. How do you build student relationships? Questions about SEL, trauma-informed education, and adverse childhood experiences. Science and engineering, STEM, STEAM, NGSS, Makerspace. MTSS or RTI, those are those intervention systems that we use to give students the support they need. And finally, how do you use data to make decisions that inform your core instruction? Be prepared for some questions about the hot topics in education. Plan ahead for the kind of questions you'll want to ask at the end of your interview. We suggest asking open-ended, higher-order questions. A less effective question would be, do you have a mentoring program? More effective would be, how do you support your early career teachers? The first question is less effective because Illinois law says all public schools must have a mentoring program. The more effective questioning drives more discussion and gets more information from the interviewers. Second, ask about culture. What is the building climate and culture? So you could ask, tell me about your students. Why do you work here? How do teachers collaborate? And finally, think about end of interview questions that bring out your value-added skills. So if your extracurriculars didn't come up during the interview, ask questions such as, during college, I competed on the cross-country team and played competitive chess. What kinds of extracurricular roles could I help with? This approach is effective because you've got the chance to tell the administration and the interview team what skills you have that they might not have asked you about. But you're also asking the question of, what kind of extracurricular roles could I fill? The next section provides sample questions with rubrics for practice and self-reflection. We recommend that you pause at each screen to read and practice the interview questions. Reflect on your responses and rate your response using the rubric. Question 1. Thank you for visiting with us today. We've had a chance to review the applications from candidates who applied for the position, and we invited you here because your application was selected for the next round of screening. Take a moment to bring your application to life and tell us why you became a teacher. Press pause and practice answering this question now. How did you do? Take a look at the rubric and rate the quality of your response. Question 2. Why are you interested in teaching in Cloverdale? Press pause now. Question 3. How would you design a lesson for 6th graders that teaches the distributive property? Press pause now. Question 4. Tell me about a time when you had to work with your colleagues to solve a difficult challenge. What was the result? Press pause now. How do you plan for instruction in a unit? Answer question 5 and press pause now. Question 6. How do you utilize technology in your instruction? Press pause now. Question 7. During a parent-teacher conference, a parent says that you are not helping their child learn. She is frustrated and is tired of her child failing. How would you respond? Press pause now. Question 8. How would you describe your philosophy of classroom management? Press pause now. Question 9. If I visited your classroom, what would student engagement look like? Press pause now. Question 10. Tell me about a time when you taught a lesson that didn't work. Press pause now. In conclusion, welcome to the profession. Know that interview skills can be practiced and improved, and you can practice using these strategies to gain confidence and improve your interview skills. Thank you for watching video 3, and if you have any questions, please contact me or any of your professors at the university, and we will be happy to help you.